Hi, everybody. This is Julia here with Cheryl, and this is December 11th, 2022. And Cheryl and I found each other in ARCHAIX live chat yesterday or the day before. I can't even remember now. It was way early in the morning for me. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning when I got on there, and I got woken up by the dogs. So that's why I was just awake. So when I found that ARCHAIX was live, so I went in, and right toward the end, I was about to even leave a message in the chat that I was going to go back to sleep. And then Jason even mentioned that he would have another chat with me at the end. And then Cheryl and I just started talking in the chat. And she was saying she's going to be on Alpha Vedic's channel. And then I just looked on her YouTube channel and realized, oh, that's the same Cheryl that I've seen with Tom Campbell. And I was like, wow, she's on ARCHAIX too. So yeah, we just chatted a little bit on there and then changed information. Another funny thing that happened, so many synchronicities, because I went on your channel and left a message that we should have a chat together, and she went on my channel and left a message that we should have a chat together almost at the same time. And then just now I'd sent her a video with the Tree of Knowledge, Sonia, and she had just clicked on to watch one right before she got that email. So there's just so many synchronicities happen. It's too funny. So yeah,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
Tell us a little more about what you like. I know with Tom Campbell, you've done his immersive, so you've worked on trying to do like out of body stuff, so to speak, because we know Tom Campbell's take on that. And how long have you been following Tom?
Before we can get going here, I'm sorry, we'll have to edit a little bit here. I'm trying to get my video back up, and I want to record this too for my channel. So
well, I'll be able to send you this recording on
okay.
Zoom.
Okay.
So you
All
don't have to worry about that. I'll just send you a copy of the recording and you can download it and upload it.
That's great. You must be ARCHAIX. I am a little bit
I'm
behind
not,
on it. So
I've done it before. It's like, yeah, when I got on here, I just noticed these things and I tried it a couple of times, and everybody always like, they think when you go live, you need to record too. Like when you go live on YouTube and you don't, it will just record it automatically. But yeah, so you'll be able to get it, no problem.
well,
Yeah,
okay then.
Yeah. And so yeah, I think you said on the email you about 6 years ago you met Tom, and I've been following him I think since 2014. I found Tom Campbell, Dan Winter, Nassim Harriman, and Sivan Bomar. And they were kind of these people that weren't mainstream narrative kind of people that kind of took me down rabbit holes initially to where I am today, meeting you on the ARCHAIX chat.
I thought it was so interesting how, all the synchronicities and how we were just meant to kind of come together and talk about these things. I met Tom Campbell 6 years ago. I've been a seeker for over 30 years. And one of my first big aha moments was when I found Joseph Campbell years ago. And so I went through, all of his work, and I read all of his books, and I could kind of see under the surface that there was something else going on that I need to know. And so I was just working on it and working on it. And then I went through all of it. I went through Abraham Hicks. I looked at all of her data, and I found a couple of glitches in her data that I didn't feel was accurate. But I did see how my reality was. I was affecting it, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what the connection was. And so I went through all her data. I actually went to one of her shows, and my nephew got in the hot seat and it was a really cute moment. He's very young. He was 18. And so he went up there and talked to Abraham, and yes, Abraham is able to, tap into the larger reality. And I knew something very, very odd was going on there. And after that, it was very close after that, I found Tom Campbell's work. And, the law of attraction, I knew it had something to do with that, but I didn't know how. And so in 2016, I found Tom's work and I started, watching his videos, and then he started talking about the fear piece of it. And in Abraham Hicks' work, she would talk about, oh, well, when the negativity comes in, oh, that's just contrast, and you need to get yourself into a better vibration. Well, yeah, that's all good, but unless you're actively dealing with those fears, that bad vibration is going to come right back. And so in Tom's work, he would start talking about how you need to get rid of your ego and your fears and all of that stuff. And so I started coming at it from that angle, and I started seeing some shifts in my reality. And I said, okay, this guy's got the real data. He's got it. So I found his website and I went to it, and it was the oddest thing. I found that they were doing this live immersive, and it was the first one that they ever did with, where people go to where Tom is, and then he, works with you he worked with everybody. It was very small. It was about 20 people. And when I first found it on the internet, I just had this huge, intuitive push. You need to go. You need to go. And I didn't even know what it was. I said, what is an immersive? We're going to meditate all day. What is this? And so I ended up going, followed my intuition. I ended up going there. And when I walked into the room, the first minute that Tom and I laid eyes on each other, it was just the oddest thing. And so I started talking to Tom, and then he's just standing there reading my mind. and I'm talking to him, and he says,
But she means literally reading her mind, because Tom Campbell can do that, right?
oh, yes, Tom Campbell is a wizard. He can do all kinds of things. And that's,
and he never brags about it. The only way you know that is because, of course, you met him, and you have to watch hundreds of his videos to know some of the amazing things that he's able to do and has done and been through. So yeah, he's not one that boasts at all about it. Okay, sorry.
Well, I found him. He has no ego, and he is a vibration of love, a very powerful vibration of love. So when you enter the room, I mean, you can kind of feel it coming through the internet when he's speaking, but when you're in the room with him, his vibration takes over the whole room. Everybody gets happy and giddy. And it was just I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. And I said, what is going on here? This is just really amazing. So I'm standing there talking to him, and he looked at me and he said, oh, you thought you were crazy, didn't you? Because I've always been super intuitive. I've always had a very, very vivid imagination, and I could see things going on around me that I would point out, and other people would say, what do you mean? And I just started, keeping all those things to myself. I think it has to do with, I had a near-death experience when I was 7. So I think it thinned the veil between me and source. And so I was just always able to get there a lot easier. That's my take on it. I'm not exactly sure. And so as I started talking to Tom, and, it was like he just reaches right into you, and, he looks at your data, and then he knows where you're locked up in, and then you can ask him a question, and then he'll start answering your question, and then he veers right off into where you're stuck. And so after all that process, and I went to almost all of the immersives, and he worked with me pretty much one-on-one every time I was there. One of the most amazing things that I just got to the immersive, and I was up in my room, and when I walked into my room, we had roommates there, and the roommate that I got looked exactly like my mother. And what are the odds of that? And that was where I was stuck, and I had some issues around that to work through. And so I went directly into fear in my room, and I was frozen in fear. I could hardly get to where, because it was a long day, airplanes and all that stuff. I was just trying to go to bed. So I get over, I had to walk around her, and I was just terrified. I was shaking because, I had a lot of fear around the whole mother issue that I needed to work through, that I didn't even realize what was going on there, because I thought I'd forgiven and all that and moved on, but I hadn't worked on my specific fears around the event, some of the events. And so I go, and just as my head's getting ready to hit the pillow, I hear in my head, go to the pool room. And I'm like, I can't move. I'm so exhausted. I can't do anything else. And so I'm just going to go to bed. And then it was another one that came through, go to the pool room. It was almost like a, a command thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So I get back up, and I had to go back by where she was in her bed, and I'm hanging onto the rail of my bed, frozen in fear. So finally I went down to where the pool room is. And one little thing, anytime you see Tom Campbell in person, he's never alone, ever. He's always surrounded by people, and everybody's talking to him. He's never alone anywhere. And so as I went down to the pool room, I come around the corner, and guess who's standing there by himself? There's nobody else there. And there he is. And this was like 11 o'clock at night. We figured everybody had gone to bed. And I'm not even sure if that was real. I don't know. And there he is. He's standing there, and he looks at me. And at that point, I'm in tears. I'm shaking. And he looks at me, and he says, oh, well, hi, Cheryl. Oh, what's wrong? And I just looked at him. Oh, no, we're not doing this. You're not seeing me like this, right? And it was, wave of embarrassment. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I turned around to go back up the stairs. I'm just leaving. Cheryl's out. I'm going. And he followed me, and he just took my hand and pulled me back over to where he was. And he said, what's the matter? And then I just looked at him, and I said, my mom, it's not my mom, but she looks just like my mom, and she's in my room. And he says, well, he goes, you're going to have to deal with this. And I said, evidently I do need to deal with something. And so I'm leaning there on the counter, just crying my eyes out, and he's patting me on the back. You can do it. Use your courage. Use your courage. You can face this. And so we went through this little thing there, and he showed me how to traverse and how to step out of that fear. And it was like it gave me a roadmap. And I used that same roadmap on all the other fears that I needed to face after that night. And so it was like he just gave up and gave me a golden ticket out of, a lot of fear that I had. I had lots and lots and lots of fears around a lot of different things. And he was just standing there and supporting me, and he was just letting me know, you can do this, and you're going to be okay. Yes, it's scary. And I just, and then as he could feel my vibration shifting out of that fear, and then he would just say something like, okay, now remember, these are in your past. So he was giving me the data that I needed to step myself out of that fear place that I was in, because it was a reflection of me that I had created from all the thoughts and all the feelings that I had throughout my life. So these fear bubbles were just huge. And it was so scary that it would just, it would just make me shake, And so after that, I got myself calmed down, and I got myself together, and I quit crying. And then he gave me a big old hug, and I could just feel this burst of love that he aimed at me. And it was really that thing that he talks about of love is not something that you get, it's something you give. And you can feel it when it comes out of him, and you just feel like you're loved. And that was the first time in my life that I felt like I had felt that strong of a love vibration coming towards me. And and so I went back to my room, and then I had to deal with that, the person in my room for the next 3 days. And it was pretty bumpy, but I did it, and I got through a lot of things. And another little thing I need to say is, when I was young, my father got very, very sick, and it really disturbed my mother. There was 4 children in the home, and she was doing everything she could to maintain the family, the home, you know, keeping us fed and clean and all those things. And when my father got sick, you know, it was just, it upended her, and she couldn't do it all herself. And so I had to step into a role and help her. And it was a very sad space. And so because she was so, you know, off kilter, she wasn't able to give love as freely as you could if you didn't have all those problems. So out of that is where, you know, a lot of my work came from that I needed to do. And after that day, you know, I just knew that this is something I need to do. And this is why I feel so bad a lot of times, is because I had so much fear. And so after that immersive, I went home and I started working on it. And he has another, you know, little thing he does called the fireside chat, where you can go in there and ask 2 questions. And so I continued to do that for the next 3 years. I went to immersives. I would go onto the fireside chat, and it was not the easiest thing in the world, because, you know, I had to be vulnerable and say what I was really thinking. Well, it wasn't like you could hide from Tom, because he knew what you were thinking anyway. And I would go on there and I would just say, well, I'm going to do this. I know that I need to. And maybe, just maybe, this will help other people get out of this fear, you know, vibration that they live in, because it's uncomfortable. Living in, you know, a fear vibration all the time that's just under the surface takes an enormous amount of energy to deal with, because you're dealing with life too, right? You're dealing with, you know, you got to get your things done, you got to pay bills, you got to do all these other things to, you know, maintain your physical well-being. Well, and then at the same time, then you've got all of this other emotional, you know, stuff that you're dealing with at the same time, and it's a lot. And so he just was there every step of the way. He gave me one-on-one help for, well, since 2016. And it was a journey that I would gladly do over again. I'm in such a complete different place. I don't live in fear anymore. I do still have a few fears that I'm working on. I don't think it ever ends, really, as far as that goes. But it can get you to, you know, a better place, because, you know, if you've got too much fear going on in your being, what happens is that it prevents you from being able to love others, because fear is inward focused, and it's all about, you know, yourself, because you're scared. You know, love is about others, and it's outward facing, and it's something you give to others. And so that was one of the big things that I took, you know, was able to grow past. And then I was able to start giving love to other people. And when I started doing that, my whole world changed. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 10 years when I met Tom. And I called her and told her that I forgive everything. And I'm sorry that I wasn't forgiving before, and that I loved her and appreciated her. And that Christmas, we all got together as a family for the first time in 10 years. And it was the most glorious homecoming that I've ever experienced. And I wasn't fear-based anymore. I was having, you know, loving feelings and vibrations toward everyone in my family. And they responded to it in a big way. I was hugging my sister, just loving her. And she whispers in my ear, "You're different. You're just different." And she just didn't understand what was happening. And I couldn't explain it to her, right? So I just told her, "I love you." And I started loving all my family. And now when we get together, it's the funnest interactions. And from me getting better, it's exactly like Tom Campbell says. You can't make other people better. You have to work on yourself and get yourself better. And then by you doing that, that is what makes other people get better. My mother started growing. My sisters and brothers started growing. Now they're able to be more loving. And I didn't say anything. All I did was approach them in a loving way, instead of a fearful way of, "Oh no, what are you going to say that's going to hurt my feelings," or any, you know, stuff like that. My family was, you know, pretty conservative. I'm from Texas, and I'm an extreme right brain. I'm super intuitive and creative, and they are very conscientious and logical. So I was like an alien, and they just didn't understand me. It wasn't that they didn't like me. They didn't get me. They didn't know, where I was coming from. And how do you know those things? And it's offsetting to logical, left brain people, because right brain people, they can just come to the conclusion. They just get the information. We can't explain where we got it from. We can't say, oh, well, A plus B equals C, and that's why we're here. Well, I call it leapfrogging. I leap from lily pad to lily, concept to concept, and I'm doing something that they can't do in their mind. And so I wouldn't say it causes fear, it just causes confusion, because they're trying to figure out, okay, how did you just leapfrog over all of the process to getting there? Now you're talking about where I'm at. How'd you get here? And so it's just offsetting. So I was able to explain, because I talked to Tom and he explained to me, he said, you're a right brain. Your left brains are not going to understand you. And that's okay. It's just some people are left brain, some people are right brain, and it's a very different perspective. And because I knew that, I was able to go back and explain that to them. And my little sister, her eyes just got big. She said, you mean you don't think like us? And I said, not at all. I said, someday we'll sit down and we'll talk about, my perspective and what I see and my experiences and how I experience them. And she was just flabbergasted too, that you can come from the same family and have such a different perspective on life. And so all of the work I did, it brought those people together. Then those people grew. Then their families started changing and getting better. It was just like a domino effect. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. And then Tom Campbell told me, he said, your family is functioning now, and there's only 1 in 100 families that are functioning families. The rest of them are fear-based, and they argue and bicker a lot, and it's because they're they've got too much fear and ego and beliefs that are preventing them from getting and maintaining those deep love connections that we all need to survive here. So that's my story around Tom. And that's kind of how it unfolded. And then he started doing some magical things. One time I was getting ready to leave, and I miscalculated my flight home, and I was going to miss my plane. And I'm standing there saying goodbye to Tom, and he looked at me, and he looks up in the air and he goes, oh, we need to delay your plane. It was almost like he was talking to himself. Oh, we need to delay your plane. And I'm like, delay my plane? What do you mean? And then I didn't understand what he meant. So he didn't say anything else. So I just walked off. And then when I got to the airport, I realized that I'd made a mistake, because I'm standing at, I looked at my time. And I said, oh no, I'm 30 minutes late for my flight. I probably missed my flight. And then I looked up at the lady and I said, I think I missed my flight. And then she looked down, she goes, oh, no, you didn't. Your flight was delayed by 45 minutes.
Just amazing. Yeah, what a story. Thanks, Cheryl, for sharing that. That's so amazing. Tom, he really is a wizard. He really is. And one of the things I talk about a lot on my channel is getting rid of those subconscious beliefs, like I'm not good enough, all those fear-driven beliefs, I'm not worthy, I never have enough. And there's a process called Language Lessons of the Heart. And I posted a lot on Tom Campbell's videos because, he's always talking about losing fear and ego and all that, but some people need like a structured process. So I have that on my channel. There's an emotional healing playlist, and then on the Say playlist, you can go straight to the Loth workshops and Language Lessons of the Heart is Loth. And yeah, it's just another way to help you clear out that fear. And it's all about vibration, just like you were saying. When you're at
Yes.
that resonance, you affect everyone. You affect everyone with your resonance. And when it's up like that, and luckily your family was, headed in that direction of wanting to improve themselves, because when you resonate real high around people who don't want to do it, boy, there's a lot of friction, because there's dissonance, right?
Oh,
They're
wow.
freaking
Yes, there
out.
is. Oh, I've seen them
Yeah,
bouncing off me like rubber balls. They just
exactly.
can't,
So,
they just can't come forward because it brings up all their fear within them. And
right. And sometimes they even lash out at you, you know?
oh yeah, oh, I've had a lot of shin kicking. But and that's another thing I had to learn from Tom is how to deal with, that situation, because they will come for you, because it's, I'm here, I'm miserable. How dare you be having so much fun here and being happy? You can't do that around me. So here, I'm going to kick you in the shin. And then I learned, oh, they're super miserable, to look at them out of compassion and through love, the eyes of love. And, oh, I see that you're a very unhappy person and you're struggling. And so I try to come at it with that and be positive and compassionate. And some respond to it, others don't. They stay mad and go away. But once you work on your value and your sense of self-worth, then you understand that it's not about you, it's about them. They're the ones that's upset. So the problem is within them. It's not within you. You didn't do anything wrong to cause them to be negative towards you. They're negative towards you because they are, underneath it all, fearful, and they've got a lot of ego and a lot of, other things going on. That's not about you. It's about them and their process. And so once you can let go of that and you get your self-worth up there high enough, then you can see it for what it is. And I've noticed there's been several people that did finally come around when I interacted with them from that place. And they too have, started becoming more positive, and because that's what they've never been shown. They've always been negative. They've always gotten negative back. They haven't been shown positive and loving vibes towards them in years, and so when they do feel that love vibe, we all need it and we all crave it because it just feels so good, and when you are able to help someone start stepping out of there, to me, there's just nothing better, because I've been there. I know what that's like, and it's not any fun. And so,
Right. And Tom's always saying you have to be love, you have to do things from the being love level. And it's all about being love. And I think that's who we were initially. And we have to get back to that. We get so indoctrinated and bogged down in this dense um, realm that we're in right now, this dense data stream. And so
yes,
we have to really put a lot of work into coming back into being love. And that's a really good point, is the way you respond to those people that attack you. And sometimes it takes a lot of finesse to respond in a loving way when you're getting attacked unjustly. But that's that, you're at that vibration now. You can do that. You don't get offended. You take your ego out of it. So you don't just get offended by every little thing. And that's
right,
huge too. You realize mostly it's projection with them. They're projecting their issues onto you. So yeah, it's so empowering to get to that point. But let's
yes,
move on to ARCHAIX, because
archaics.
even though Jason and Tom both are proponents of simulation theory, they're very different, because
They are.
Tom goes with the narrative 100%, right? He even got the vaccine. He's 100% with the narrative, evolution, the Big Bang, all that kind of stuff. And he sees this reality stream as just a place we can learn. We chose to come here. Um, we could have chosen a different reality stream. We could have stayed out, but when people stay out, they get bored, so they eventually come back in. And we're here to
Right,
grow and evolve and become love, basically, and
right.
have experiences. And he doesn't see it as negative or being trapped in. He does go into. He is a proponent of reincarnation, and
Yes,
for kind of the same reasons as Jason, because and he's all about the memory wipe being a good thing, because a lot of people are all like, no, that's a bad thing, and we're in a soul trap, all these reincarnations. Tom is not like that at all, which Jason
yeah,
isn't either, so they're similar on that. But this thing that Jason has about this simulation having a final end, and having all these AIX, Tom doesn't see any AIX here, I don't think. What do you think?
um Well, on these issues, I thought about this for a long time because I think that they're both right. I think that they both have their, they're over the target, both of them. I think that Tom is extremely careful that he doesn't increase fear in people, because he knows that they're all already so fearful. He doesn't want to increase it, because I think for him, he sees it's just going to make it a little bit harder for them to come back to love. And I think that he omits anything that would cause fear in other people. And I also think because Tom Campbell is, he was one of the first, scientists, to come forward with the simulation theory. I think that he's had to be very careful on his channel because, because, he worked for NASA. And if you remember, he was one of the scientists that was involved when they discovered remote viewing that is used for our military. So I think that, the system is very well aware of Tom. And I think that he has to do things a certain way so that he doesn't get his content taken down. I think
Good point. Good point. I never thought about it from that angle.
Well, I thought about this for a long time, and why would he be saying, that this is good, and when I know darn good and well that Tom can go look in the data and see that it's not good. I think that they came to Tom and said, you need to promote this. If you don't, we're taking everything down. And I think that that may have been what happened. In my intuition, in my gut, I don't feel like he believed the mainstream narrative. I feel that it was either you do this or we're going to do that. And
right, you have to the mainstream narrative pushed. You can throw out simulation theory, but that's it. You're not gonna.
Yes, because it is all controlled, and except they can't control us individuated IUOCs. But I think that Tom is so well known in this realm that there are, other, IUOCs that know who he is, and they know where he's at all times, because I think Tom's a very old, evolved soul here. There's, I heard a comment that Tom Campbell was Sri Yukteswar in his last lifetime. And I went and looked, and sure enough, he probably was. And then if you go back further, I started finding him everywhere in this realm. He was also St. Nicholas, the first real Santa Claus.
I believe that. And he had that one story too, because you were saying when you met him, you thought he might not even be real when you met him going to the pool room at your hotel. And
yes,
he had that story where he just appeared in that truck driver's truck with him. I don't know if you caught, because he had so many videos. I don't know if you've gone back and watched them all. And he talked he was a serial killer, and he talked him out of killing this lady. And then years later, he met the lady.
Wow. Oh, I totally believe it. He's just all over this realm.
He just appeared in that guy's truck too. It was all, and he says he does out of body work all the time. He just doesn't give any details. And and when anyone talks about loosh, like Bob Monroe, he coined that term loosh, and
right.
Tom worked with him, but Tom's always like, oh no, that's just their imagination, and he does have some good points. If you really want to see something a certain way, whatever this realm is, it'll present it that way for you.
Right.
It'll give you the evidence you're looking for to support whatever you're trying to do.
Yes, exactly. Yep. You get what you believe, whether you want it or not, And so that's, I think, why he doesn't, put more things out there. Now, I do believe this is a reset system. I believe they're both correct. I just think that Jason is doing his part, and then Tom Campbell does his. And I think that they're less aware of Jason, but Jason is also a very old soul here. Jason, I'm pretty sure I know who he was in his last life too. I don't know. It's just a little thing I like to do. I look for them, these old souls that I've come across. I look for them, and
who do you think Jason was?
Well, first I want to say this is I think that Jason and Tom Campbell are both exactly correct, and I think that they're just coming at it from two different directions. I think Tom comes to the direction of science and from the heavenly realms, right? And Jason came up through the dungeon, the
Yeah, for
other
sure.
realms.
Totally.
They came
And
from
then
two
look at
different.
and if you put them side by side, you totally see that. I mean, if they were just standing next to each other, it'd be like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, there's the upper realms and the lower realms. Here it is, all right here. And I think that each IUOC, you can develop yourself to the point to where they are. And, I think that Jason had to come up the way he did because Jason is hiding. And I think, and I'm pretty sure, have you heard of I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Gurdjieff, 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 Gurdjieff.
Yeah.
He was the one that came up with the fourth way. And his philosophy was very much, this is an inside job. You are here to do this work. This is an inner work. This is an inner verse. If you're looking around you, seeing all this stuff, oh, look what's happening to me. Gurdjieff was like, no, you're doing it. This baggage you have, you packed it, and you're causing all of this. And he was, because of Christianity, well, it's all outside of you. There's a Jesus outside of you that blesses you. And, you don't have any, you don't have any power here to, change and do anything with yourself. It all comes from outside of you. Well, not Gurdjieff. He was one of the first few, and he, worked on the fourth way, and he set up a school that helped people start stepping their way out of dogma and religion and start coming back to, this is about you. You're doing it. And that was, what he worked on. Another interesting thing that he did, excuse me, is when the Bolsheviks went into Russia, the first thing they did was went into the Orthodox churches where they did teach this, the kind of the inner journey and the inner work that you're here to do, which was, they were teaching the truth. They weren't teaching dogma. And so right before everything got going, they went and shut down all the Orthodox churches, and Gurdjieff was right behind them, went and he took all the information right back to the churches. So they were taking the information out, he was putting it back in so that they would still get to, keep this, it's called Gnosticism, keep this Gnostic knowing that this, of how this place works. And if you look at the pictures of Gurdjieff and look at his eyes, the only difference, they look just alike. The only difference is the mustache that Gurdjieff had, and Jason doesn't have a mustache. But if you look at them, they look pretty much identical, and they are doing the exact same thing that that Gurdjieff did. It's the same thing that ARCHAIX did, except ARCHAIX has more information. He discovered the Phoenix, reset cycle of 138 years. And so basically he just put himself in jail so that he could fly under the radar. I call it doing the undercover squirrel, because how the system pretty much, the good entities here and the bad IOCs, and there's all different kinds. Well, they know who Tom is and where he's at all times. Well, they lost track. We call him Gigi. They lost track of Gigi because he was in jail getting all of his data, getting ready to do what he's doing right now. And if you look at what Jason's work and what he's telling people, he's telling them basically about the fourth way, about this is about you. And, what you believe is coming right back at you. You're doing it to yourself. And in the people in the chat, they say, well, I believe this is just a place of suffering. And he will stop what he's doing and look up into the screen, and you can tell he's connecting with that consciousness and saying, well, this is what I see. And when you look at it that way, you're just going to keep getting more of what you get. You've got to get it. Fear is a terrible thing to have. And the one-on-one work that he does with these people, he's not, he is here to help others. He's not here to scare people. He's here to help people. And I think because we're getting so close down to the timeline, I think that Gigi thinks that it's okay to go ahead and give the information of the 138-year reset cycle. But he even says in Jason's work, I don't think that at the end of this cycle of, the 6,000-year cycle, I don't think that that's the end. I think that's just when, another part of it starts.
Well, a reboot, yeah, just a total reboot. Yeah,
He said it's
Jason,
like a reboot. He said it's like the old, the people that have learned the lessons here and they're ready to, to move
right.
on. I think what they do is they come in, just like Tom has all this time, is they come in and then they become teachers. And I think that after each, cycle that we go through, the evolution of consciousness, I think, is what it's all about. And each time you come in and go through one of these 6,000-year life sims, if you are still caught up in ego, fear, and belief, and you're just not getting anywhere, I think that those IUCs are either deleted or, I don't know, because I'm, this is just speculation here, that something is going on. And then the ones that are the consciousnesses that are starting to pick up what's going on, then they continue on. It's like the 144,000, that do get it each time. And I think through the evolution of consciousness, because all of our consciousnesses are a little different in the areas that we need to work on. And that's what gives us, different perspectives in life from each other, because we are working on different areas. And there's so many, this place is so complex that there's so many different areas to work on. There's intuition, imagination, logic, there's so many different levels. And I think it takes a long time to develop a soul here, because I think consciousness starts out at pretty much, the medium level. And if you're a baby consciousness, well, you make mistakes for a long, long time until you get it. And I think it's just such a hard process, and that we need all different kinds of teachers and different kinds of assistants here. And I just think that Tom and Jason, I want to call him Gigi because I'm pretty sure that's who he is. They come at it from two different ways. And I think that Gigi showed up just in time for the people that he's working with. And if you look in his chats, there's over 2,000 people in his chats these days. So that's 2,000 people that have been drawn to him that are working on themselves instead of being caught in that cycle of, fear, belief, and ego. So, and Tom works with thousands of people. It's mind blowing how many people he's helped grow up in this place. He just is a dynamo here, but he comes at it in his own way.
That's just in this reality stream, because he goes and works with a lot of stuff outside of this too. So yeah.
Yes, he definitely is a multi-dimensional
Perhaps
player.
Jason does too, not unknowingly.
Yes. Well, I think it's the exact same thing. It's the exact thing, because once you learn what this place is, then you get rid of your fear and you progress past those points. Then you become a teacher, because, while you're learning this stuff, well, you can't teach something you don't know. So then you become a teacher. And then once you get all the lessons around teaching, and I'm pretty sure that I'm moving from learning it and I'm starting to go into teaching. And I have gotten so many lessons around teaching and how to help others. So many lessons that it's just obvious I'm trying to learn how to teach. And so I think what happens, like Tom and Jason, they are already teachers, but I think that they teach teachers. See, so it's like a fractal of itself, right? You come in as a student, you learn the lessons of a student, then you become a teacher, then you become a teacher of teachers, right?
Yeah.
And then it keeps on going, and it's just
teachers, right.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. And you're right. Once you lose that fear, and same thing with me, since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a teacher. I used to play school when I was growing up, and I decided I was going to go to college and become a teacher, and grew up really poor. My friends just laughed at me like, "You ain't going to college, girl." And anyway, I did all that, but then I learned what school really is, and so here I am now uh, with the YouTube channel, sharing information, and hopefully, getting to that point where I'll be able to teach and eventually teach teachers.
Yes, yes. Well, if you found Tom's work and Jason's work, it means that you're probably in a teaching mode, because I think that pretty much Tom and Jason have already, they've already done all of that homework, and they teach teachers. So I think you're an older soul too, because if you're becoming a teacher, you've already kind of learned, kind of how this realm works, because you had to do all that first before you could become a teacher. And so you've had a lot of, lives over and over again just to learn how this place works. Now you know how this place works, and now you're getting the information that you need on how to teach others, because it can be done in a wrong way, and you can really throw people off. And if you're not careful when you're interacting with them one-on-one, they can, because if you don't approach it in the right way, I'm sure, as you've seen, if you don't approach it in the right ways, and you have to be really intuitive, kind of feeling where they're at, they'll suck back into themselves, and they'll throw down that gate, and they won't, you can accidentally push people back in further, if that makes any sense. You got to kind of find where they are, and then just plant the next 2 seeds that they need to grow past where they currently are. But if you step them too far ahead and you throw in a seed, oh, well, we're all resonance. Well, maybe they haven't learned that yet. And some of them, it is very, very disturbing to them when they have to come to the concept that the world is not out to get them. Nothing is happening to you, that everything you got going on, you packed your own baggage, and you're doing it to yourself. Well, then if they haven't worked on their self-worth and some of that, it can throw them back into guilt. Well, I've done all this. Oh my God, all those problems, the problem that person has over there, I caused that. And then they can go into guilt, which is also fear too, right? So it's about learning the fine points of teaching and how to work with that IUOC, so that you step them out from where they are and not push them back further back into fear. And it's a skill. I tell you, it is a skill, because I've done both. I've accidentally pushed people back in, but I was learning how to teach. And so I'm sure those experiences was what I was supposed to have. And I'm sure that soul did okay, even though I didn't teach them right, or I didn't do it well. But there was a lot of lessons around that. And it's like, oh, that didn't work out too well.
Yeah, but just
And
having
then,
that awareness and being able to be the observer of what happens is huge. I just want to say that IUOC stands for Individuated Unit of Consciousness, and that's what we are, these avatars. So when you hear that, because a lot of people aren't familiar with Tom's work, so I just wanted to share that.
right. So
But
it
yeah,
would
you're
be
also so right about pushing people too far with how much you expect, and because of our resonance where it is with this fearless resonance, it's so intimidating to people. So you really just have to, mollycoddle them and just be so careful with them.
Yes, and that's one of the one of the finer things you learn is you have to be really careful and really think about where and feel where that person is. And then you have to be really careful around that. And as you come in a cautious way like that, you have way more of an impact. You can change, help that person change their own life by how you handle that situation. And I think that it's a very important skill to have, especially as a teacher. And, Jason also talks about, he doesn't use the term IUOC. Jason used the term oversoul in his work, but it's the same thing. He believes that we are a piece of consciousness. He calls it the oversoul. Tom Campbell calls it the IUOC. And then your avatar, Jason just calls it an avatar. And in Tom's work, he calls it a free will awareness unit. And he also uses avatar too, interchangeably.
Well, and he calls the oversoul the larger consciousness system, right? That would
Right,
be
right,
and then the individuated unit of consciousness is kind of like our higher self.
right.
And it
It's
can,
all
and
of your life sims together, all of your
right,
experience.
right. kind of like where we go back to the spaceship that Jason's talking about.
Right.
Real avatars. And
Right,
another
right.
thing that Tom says that's interesting is that the IUOC can have two different free will awareness units at one time in this reality. That can happen, like a mother and daughter can be one individuated unit of consciousness. So that's pretty interesting. I almost feel like that's the case with me and my nephew.
Really? So you have a closeness with the nephew?
He lives with me because he's a stroke victim.
Oh,
He's
goodness.
44, but he's partially paralyzed and he doesn't really speak or read anymore, but he's very cognitive and he does everything for himself. But he has issues. He's very depressed and yeah, there's issues and stuff, but whatever. Yeah, but we're working through things. But yeah, I've always kind of had that feeling because yeah, we've always had real closeness. And his mom was my sister who really abused me growing up and stuff. And so interesting that now he's living with me. But yeah, just those kind of things that happen, all these things that just are so orchestrated in this life and people just put in your path and you're obviously
Yes.
supposed to be there for them. So you are.
Yes, and he, it was more than likely he knows who you are from other life sims, and he knows who you are, and and people, they, we volunteer to come in and help each other, and that's, I think that happens a lot too. I've seen my family. I know quite a few of them, and I've known them from other places. My little thing that I like to do is figuring out who people are, and it was really funny. I went to one immersive, and I was sitting there talking to this gentleman, and I just looked at him, and it was another thing like Tom. Like the when I met Tom, it was like I already knew him. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? And it was the same thing. It was like I already knew him. And I haven't talked about this before, but I think it's okay to talk about. I don't think they want to be revealed to their face, but I think that it's okay because it is my story, and it was my life, and I lived it. But I was sitting there and I was talking to this gentleman, and he had a very strong love vibration like Tom. And we sat there, the first time I met him, we ended up sitting there talking for 3 hours. And I was like, well, that was really odd. And so I went on, and then he started texting me, and he likes science too. And so we were talking about science, and he loves a lot of the intuitive scientists that I love, the Schaubergers. He was the water scientist. What was the other one? Oh, what's his name? Walter Russell, and Steiner, and he liked all of these intuitive scientists. That was our common theme. So we talked for hours on the phone. And then one day he said, hey, I'm going to be coming through Texas. Let's meet up and just have a chat. I said, well, sure. So he comes through Texas. He pulls up in my house in this crazy looking car. I'd never seen anything like it. And I look in there and it looked like a spaceship. And I was like, my goodness, this is strange. So we went somewhere and we were sitting there talking. And then all of this stuff started happening. We're sitting there eating lunch, and a street sweeper showed up, and it's driving down the road, street sweeping. Dust is flying everywhere. And I'm sitting there and I could feel, the negativity, coming up. Because, well, the street sweeper is blowing dust into my food that I just ordered. And I'm sitting there and I hear something. I turned to my left and I looked at this person, and they've got their hands up in the air like they're riding a roller coaster, laughing and interacting with the street sweep driver. They were waving at each other, having the best time. And I looked at that and I went, he just turned a super negative thing into something positive. Immediately. There was no, hey, why is the street sweeper blowing? What are they doing? Why are they There was none of that. He just completely accepted that what was happening. And I went, and I thought to myself, I felt it. I said, this is where I'm going wrong. I'm not taking the positive path immediately. I'm thinking about what's going on. And then if there's something there that I don't particularly like, then I'm getting, I don't like this. And And then here he is doing this. Like, look at him. He's not upset. And look at you. Look what's happening here. and then after the street seer went by, I turned to him. I said, how did you just do that? And we had and that day, there was probably 5 or 6 more experiences like that happened that was around how to stay positive no matter what. And then at the end of it, I looked at him. I said, well, when is some of your stuff going to come up? Because, he knows Tom, that we're here working, and our fears come up and then we deal with them. I'm like, well, when is your stuff going to come up? Well, I don't think he had any, because it wasn't long after that, the next year, I met up with him and another woman that I'd met through the MBT, that she sought me out. She contacted me through the MBT, through a chat somewhere. And so I met up with all of them in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we're all standing there, and it hit me. I said, oh my gosh, who are you really? And then he looked at me and he said, whatever do you mean? Because I got it. I knew who he was. It was Yogananda. It was so Yogananda. It was Yogananda. I knew who he was. Then I went back and looked at some pictures, because Tom Campbell was Sri Yukteswar, right? And there they were, standing next to each other. I went, oh my goodness. And then he wouldn't say anything. He just started laughing. He said, oh yeah, yeah, I hung out with Tom a little bit, huh? And he was just kind of laughing it off. And then when I got home, the woman that was there with me, she was Tara Mehta, who worked with Yogananda in her last life. And all of them, Tom, this person I'm talking about, who's Yogananda, this woman who was Tara Mehta, who worked with Yogananda, they all look exactly like they did in their last life. I mean, exactly. The odds of that are so far out in the ballpark, and it's too big of a coincidence. And I met all these people, working around Tom.
Well,
and
who were
then
you in your past life then? You must have been in that posse too.
Well, as I started looking at who all these people were, and it's a soul group out of India that came over to America, and they started the self-realization, inner work, the self-realization fellowship in Encinitas in California. So I started going through pictures I said, okay, I'm seeing everybody else who was in this, and there's about 10 of them that I found so far. I said, okay, I must be part of this soul group somewhere, because they know me. They obviously know me, because, Patrick was always texting me. So how are you doing? He always was interested on my inner fear work, because I was working through a couple of fears, and I would just tell him about them. Okay, this is what's happening. So I've got a fear here, and this is where I'm working out of. And he was always interested in what fears and my spiritual work that I was doing. Way too interested, you know what I mean? And so what it ended up being is I went back to the Encinitas in California, and I started looking at pictures of the people that worked there. And I found this one woman standing next to Yogananda, and I immediately knew that was me. Her name was Gyanamata, Gyanamata. She worked at Encinitas. She was an older woman. She met Yogananda when she was 56, and she instantly recognized him, that he was an older soul, and she knew who he was. She ended up moving and living at Encinitas at the compound there with Yogananda. Tara Mehta was the editor of the book. What's Yogananda's book? Autobiography of a Yogi. That was the famous spiritual book that he wrote that helped a lot of people, figure out about the religious dogma they were trapped in. And it was Yogananda, Tara Mehta, which was the woman that we all met in North Carolina. She was the editor of the book, and then there I was, and then I found a picture of all of us together. We were all together, and then I immediately texted this man that had been helping me in all these ways. I said, oh my goodness, you're Yogananda. And I was this person. That's why because he was my yogi. He was my, no, he was my guru. He worked with me in my last life to help me grow and learn. And I said, oh my gosh, we work together. You helped me learn the spiritual, laws in my last life. And he just started laughing. He goes, well, and then he called me. He picked up the phone and called me immediately. And he was just laughing. He goes, you don't say. And I could hear in his voice, he already knew. And so as I looked closer and closer, I kind of found who I was. And then this life, I met, his name is Patrick, for this lifetime. Yogananda, he was Yogananda, now he's Patrick. And he called me, and as we were talking, I'm looking at the pictures, and he was just, well, we were busy, weren't we? And he knew exactly. He knew, and he finally did admit it to me. But he was so famous in his last lifetime. He doesn't want anyone to know where he's at in this lifetime. He's working on other things right now. He's working in the medical field to try to help people overcome some of the physical problems they're having with their avatars right now. So he's working in that field this lifetime. And he doesn't want to have the whole fame thing following him around. And I told him, I won't tell anybody. I said, even if they did, they won't believe me.
Right. They don't realize how much magic there is everywhere. And that's something different too about Jason and Tom, is like Jason's really not into remote viewing and all that. I've heard like people ask questions and he's like, well, I have issues with it. Whereas Tom's done all that experimentation on his own out of body. I mean, if you don't believe it after going through Tom's work, then there's no convincing. And you obviously have lots of experiences outside of this reality, and really everybody does. They just don't realize it, when they're having them.
Exactly. They just don't know that they're in another realm when they're there. Either it's a daydream or a dream itself. They just don't realize that that's going on. But everybody does it because we're all, multi data stream. We can all switch data streams. And I think that's what Tom does, is he teaches people to become aware of what you're doing so that you can start controlling it once you learn how your consciousness works and all the things that it can do. And I think that's where Tom's specialty is he's a teacher, and he's teaching about the ins and out of consciousness, what you can do with your consciousness, why you're here, and those kind of things. I think Jason is more of helping people escape out of the religious dogma, because people that are in the religious dogma, they are stuck. They can't move forward because they can't take responsibility for anything. It's all about, God and Jesus does everything here. And so I think that they have different specialties as teachers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no doubt about that. They both do. And it's so interesting, the research you've done onto their past lives, and it all makes sense. I'll have to or send me the copies of pictures if you have them. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll send you the pictures, and they're really, really interesting. They all look just like they used to. That's what got me. I went, oh wow, this is really something.
Well, you'll have to look into Sonia more as you get to look at her channel. I know you just found it today, the Tree of Knowledge, but she's a really expert remote viewer, and she says the same thing. We can all do it. We're just not at the right vibration.
Right.
The vibration, and you can get to lucid dream, and then if you just put the effort in and have the intention, because intention modifies future probability, right? And
Exactly.
that's what happens everywhere. I mean, we really do create this reality, and
Yes,
the reason it's like it is now with all this evil is because the collective is very fear-based. And
yes.
it's fear-based resonance, it's real easy to be evil. If it's a love-based resonance, nobody even thinks about doing cruel things to others, So
Right. Right.
And
And I,
once, and it's, you know, it's like any of these things, once you realize what you're doing, you know, like Tom Campbell, you know, is teaching everybody how to experience out of body stuff, because like we were just saying, we all do it. We just don't notice, have that awareness, but we need that awareness for everything, you know?
well, to do it intentionally. Like if you, you know, want to work in other areas, you know, you have to learn how to start using it intentionally, not to where it just happens. Oh, right quick. And this is what I was trying to say a minute ago. You know how I found Tom Campbell, and he was probably St. Nicholas. The very first, when I went to the first immersive, and we use these binaural beats, which entrains the right and left hemisphere and puts your vibration into a theta. And when you're in theta, you are in the vibration of the larger conscious system, and it makes it easier to maneuver and get into the larger consciousness system. And I put the tones on, and about 30 minutes later, it was just like poof. I was in an out of body experience, and it was the most vivid thing. It was just as vivid as I'm sitting right here. And I was standing there, and I started looking around, and there was snow everywhere. And I looked down at my feet, and they were deer feet, and they looked so real. I had little black hooves, and I'm looking around. I said, wow, this is so beautiful. And then I hear something behind me, and I went, uh-oh, there's somebody in here with me. And I heard something again, and then I started noticing this red glow around my face. And I turned and looked, and it was Tom Campbell in a Santa sleigh, and I was Rudolph.
That's
And
crazy.
it was the
I want
great,
some of those binaural beats.
yeah, you really need to check those out. And then you go into meditation, they take you right straight to theta. And here's the trick that a lot of people don't know about is, and that's what he teaches people, is how to do this. You have to get to point consciousness first. Then that's the jump off point. See, in a lot of the, you know, the early Indian Vedic scriptures, they talk about this place. I don't know what their word is for it. Tom calls it point consciousness. Well, that was kind of the end point. Okay, we're trying to, what they call it, samadhi, or where it just feels really good, you know, and this is where you're trying to go. Well, what Tom says is that's the jump off point. That's the doorway to the larger conscious system. You go to point consciousness, and then you have to learn how to be lucid, because when you're in theta, it's the dream state, but you've got to be awake, but you're super drowsy, and it's really easy to just drift. You know, Tom calls it clicking out, where you just immediately fall asleep. But you've got to learn how to maintain that sleepy vibe, and then you're in theta, and then you go to point consciousness. Then you can go anywhere. You can ask the system, show me something that I need to learn, or, you know, take me to this person, I want to talk to them. That's the jump off point. So once you learn how to get to point consciousness and stay awake, and then that's where you ask the question. And that's what I'd finally learned. And I tell you what, when I got there, it's like, okay, well, take me someplace I need to go. And then it's immediately, it happens just in a split second. Then bam, you're just somewhere else. And the reality in the larger system is just crystal clear. And it's just as real as the reality here, except it's a little different, but it's just super, super clear. You know exactly what's going on. You can do things in there. And that's how, I turned around and I said, oh, and then there's Tom Campbell with a Santa hat on, and he's going, you belong here. You are worthy. Come on, Rudolph, let's get this sleigh on down the road. and then after, we would have these, these meditations with the binaural beats, we would go all gather back together and talk about what happened. And so I told my story, and then someone else asked Tom, do you turn up as Santa Claus a lot? And Tom just closed his eyes and nodded his head up and down. And then, Patrick, who was Yogananda, we were having a talk about how Tom Campbell always turns up as Santa Claus. What's up with that? Then he sent me that link of how Tom was probably St. Nicholas. So he was the first Santa to begin with. And my first real strong out of body experience was in it there with Tom, and and he was Santa Claus. So it was truly interesting. But the point of that thing is that's what Tom does in his immersives, is teaches people how to get to point consciousness. And he describes it so that you know you're there, so it's not just, oh, maybe I am. And he explains to you, you can't think while you're there. Oh, am I here? Is this it? See, that's your left brain. That's your intellect talking to you, and it needs to sit down and shut up, because this is all done through the right hemisphere. That is your link up to the larger conscious system. So if you're predominantly left brain, this kind of work and doing these kind of things is particularly tough. And you've got to spend a long time learning how to meditate, and you've got to really, really work at it. But for right brain people who are more intuitive and imaginative and creative, they have an easy time with this, because this is how they live. We link up to the larger system. It gives us data. That's how we operate in life. We don't operate in a logical way. And so as Tom is teaching these concepts, then you go and you actually try it. Then you come back and tell him what happened. Then he can kind of tell you, okay, this is where you went wrong. Try this next time. Next time when you go in, just if that left brain starts kicking in there, just ignore it and don't analyze it. Don't think about, oh, well, where am I? He said, don't do any of that. Just rest back in it and have your intent ready when you get to point conscious, and ask it a question, and then you just wait for it to come. And a lot of people had their first out of body experiences there at these immersives, and they were just shocked. They didn't know anything like that existed. So that's one of Tom's specialty, is teaching people how to learn how to use and interact with the larger conscious system, just like it is a computer system. And it's basically taking a class, like a computer class, except
right. And now he has Tom's Park, which has a little bit of a different approach. And he also always points out that you don't have to go out of body or lucid dream or any of that if you just strive to be a good person in service of others and try to come from love. So anybody that's
yes,
frustrated or whatever, but if you put the intention there and you put some work behind it, you will get there. You will get there.
yes, and you will get there, and you will learn how to do it. Some of the extreme left brains who are just they've never felt comfortable with their intuition self. They just they blew it off as, oh, that's not real. Those are the ones that have the real trouble, and that's why he developed Tom's Park. He calls it an on-ramp for the left brains. In Tom's Park, that's what it's specifically designed to do, is to help the logical people learn how to use their imagination. And Tom's put some things in that park that makes it especially easy to tap into. I noticed that. Of course, I had to go check out Tom's Park, so what's going on there. And so I immediately, as soon as I closed my eyes, I set my intent, go to Tom's Park. It was immediate. Bam, I was there. And I was looking around, and I specifically didn't go look at the layout that Tom had, because he's laid it all out in a specific way. There's a lake there. There's different things you can do there. And I specifically didn't go look at any of that information, because I just wanted to make sure I was there, and then compare the data of what I saw with what he had put there. And when I went back to, what Tom put in there, I was totally there. And I thought, wow, that was one of the easiest places I've ever gone. So he's made that, he's put something in there that makes it easier for people to get to.
Right. He has this wizardry interwoven, and it's a book you can buy. It's not really a book, it's a workbook, and I think it's like $90 or something. Is that how much it is, Tom's Park?
Yeah,
But,
I'm not sure the price of it.
If you're trying to have some experiences outside this realm, it's definitely worth it.
Yes. And I think for people who've had trouble, with going out of body and, well, switching data streams, if they've, if they're really left brain, I would say Tom's Park is the way to go. That's your on-ramp that will teach you how to use your imagination, how to, you're going to have more luck getting there with that than reading a book. And even Tom's, book, My Big Toe, that book is geared toward the left brain. And it's to, he calls it an on-ramp for the left brain so that they can get, start using their right hemisphere in the ways, and use all the gifts that are there for them. And it makes it really difficult for the right brains to read because it just has too much data that we don't necessarily need. And so we get very bored quick, and then we kind of shut down as we try to read it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's been really interesting.
Yeah,
As far as
Jason doesn't really buy into all that kind of stuff too much, and he even says he doesn't dream. So it's interesting that they're so different with that aspect, because Jason's all about being here in this realm and affecting it. And Tom's kind of like, well, have some experiences out there so this isn't all there is.
yes, that is one big area where they're different. Yes. And it's probably just because of different experiences, right? I mean, Jason knows that they're he knows that our consciousness does more than what we think it does. He knows that, but he doesn't know. And maybe he's just avoiding the whole thing, because if you listen to Jason, he tends to stay away from new age concepts, if you know what I mean, because there's some of the new age, community stuff that did kind of get out there, if you know what I mean. I'm not judging. I'm just saying it's a different thing. And for some people it was helpful. For other people, it wasn't helpful. And so I think that he stays away from it specifically because I think Jason's specialty is working with people to get them away from religious dogma. Because once you're stuck there, you're not going anywhere, for sure. And I think that he just focuses there. And, when I went to the immersives, there was Tom spoke about this quite often, is that when you're incarnated in your life sim, when you're incarnated here, that focusing on the physical and where you are, that you're going to get more out of this experience. He said, if you're always in the larger consciousness system and you're always remote viewing and doing all that other stuff that consciousness could do, and you're not focusing on what's going on in your physical world, well, you're going to miss the opportunities that just showed up for a fear you can work on. And he said, in a way, it's better to stay here in the physical, and do the work you're here to do. And these other things, it's not really necessary to do those things. I think that he's teaching those things because Tom's focus is on the left brain people. He's trying to get the left brain people an on-ramp and help them develop their right hemisphere a little bit better so that they can start understanding what's happening here. Because until you really get in touch with your imagination and your intuition, it's difficult to see what's happening, right? Say, for instance, I walk into a scene, right? And something kind of weird's going on. Well, see, that gets my attention immediately. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about what is this situation I'm in? What's happening? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? And that's one of really good ways to learn how to work on what we're working on in this life sim right now, is figuring out how to work with those fears, how to work with that ego, and how to work with those beliefs. That is a big key to it, because if you don't know how, you're just going to keep getting the same loop over and over again, and you're not changing anything. You're just getting the same situation, different faces, different places, but it's still just the same thing. And so that would be a good video that we could do, is about this subject right here, of how to start using this, your physical reality, to start moving you forward out of where you are. because a lot of people that are stuck, they're not comfortable. It's not fun being stuck in a loop. And, one of the things that I go by is if I have any negative feeling come up, I know I'm interacting right then with a fear. It's under there somewhere, even though something may be going on. Well, that would make anybody mad. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. There's a lot of positive people that when something negative
Wouldn't make
happens,
Tom mad, would it?
no, wouldn't make Tom mad. I've seen Tom deal with it, because we had negative scenes happen at the immersives, and this thing was going down, and this person, she was just like, she was calling everybody selfish, and she was really pointing her finger at everybody, and we were all just going, oh, wow. And I look over at Tom, he's over there sitting at his desk laughing because he knows. And he was just laughing. He was like, a lot of people are going to learn something from this deal. How are you going to approach this situation in a positive way? And I didn't. I went at it all the wrong way. So I went downstairs and I was like, wait a minute. Why did that make me feel negative? And I got to it. It's like, oh, I see. And it relates back to, when I was younger and I had some fears around, being who I am, an extreme right brain. You don't get a lot of accolades in this world because they see you as just weird or crazy. Oh, she's just crazy, And so as I, started working through, it's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm just doing things that the left brains don't even know how to do. So no wonder they think I'm weird and crazy. I think that they're just logical, and I think they're missing out on the bigger reality here. So I'm not in a judgment way, but it's just two different perspectives. But I had a lot of left brains come at me and not be very nice, right? Because they misunderstood me and all of that. So I had a little bit of fear about the left brains. And this person was a very extreme left brain, and she was just she was getting everybody. And I said, oh, I need to forgive. And but I didn't understand that I was a right brain, that other people were left brains. That's why there was so much disconnect there. And now I love the left brains. I think they're fun to interact with, because I learned when I'm interacting with a left brain, I need to be quiet and not say anything unless they ask, right? So I get real quiet. I listen to what they're saying, and I just be still. And then when they say something, and then I can feel it, okay, this is what I need to say next, because I've been working on learning how to interact with everybody in a positive way. And so that was one of the experiences that taught me that I need to learn how to do that better, because I didn't do it very well. And because I was like, well, who did she think she was telling everybody they're bad, And Tom's over there just laughing away. But oh no, Tom's never negative, ever. He doesn't get angry. I asked Keith, who is Tom Campbell's right-hand man, he's a good friend of mine too. Keith Warner, he does MBT events, and he has done all of the planning and all the left brain work around Tom. He set up all of the immersives. He talks to all the people, and they bring it all together. They do all of the video production. So anyway, that's who Keith is. And I asked Keith one day, I said, Keith, okay, you got to tell me, Tom is just always perfect. Is he perfect? I mean, come on, everybody gets frustrated with life sometimes. I said, he has to. And then Keith looked at me, he goes, I know everybody else does, but I've never seen Tom frustrated, not once. And I went, okay, so you totally do not want to compare yourself to Tom at all, which that's the ego doing that anyway. But if you do, you're going to be really upset because he does not get mad. He has no ego. He sees everybody the same. You could be, like he said, a really bad entity here. He would treat you with the same amount of love as he would with someone who is a good person. He doesn't, that's how love is. Love is not discriminatory. Love is love. It's a vibration. It's a resonance.
It's a state of being.
It's a state of being. And once you are that, that's how you approach every other being in this realm. It doesn't matter if they're sitting in a prison cell for doing bad things. It does not matter. It's always the same. And, you know, that relates into that thing, you know, of not judging and turning the other cheek. And because once you start dealing with other people here in that resonance of love, you are the change that you want to seek in this world. You are it. You are like this, you know, you are the light in this world, and you are bringing the light in this world. That's how the light comes into this world, is through you, through love. And that's what we're all here either trying to get to. And there's a lot of us, you know, a lot of people I see that need it so desperately, and they look so weary, but they're so fearful they cannot get to that resonance. And so it takes these people who are working on it and getting there to bring it to the, we are the light bringers. You have to bring it to them. And you would just be amazed at how people who have never felt love, how they react. They may kick you in the shin, but here's the other thing about them. They follow you around everywhere you go. I was in a, I'm not saying, I mean, I'm not perfect. I've just been working on this a long time. And I understand that I'm here to, you know, get rid of negativity. And I've been working on it for a long time. But I'm not perfect. I still have my stuff. But one time I was at a concert or something. I love live music. I was standing there with my partner in crime, and he looks at me and he said, "Have you ever noticed that people just come up and stand next to you?" And I said, "Yeah, I did kind of notice that. I was wondering about that." And just as he said that, this woman walks up and stands right, I mean, right next to me, within 6 inches from my shoulder, just stands right next to me. And she's just standing there. And then I looked at her, "Oh, hi." And then I turned to my brother, I said, "Like her?" We were laughing. So she stood there for about 5 minutes. And it was almost like, okay, oh, that felt good. And then she left. Then the next person would walk up and stand there. And we did this for 30 minutes. And I noticed another thing about that when I go grocery shopping, because I've changed my resonance and it's different. I am not in a negative vibe anymore. I used to be one of the most negative people I knew. I really was. I was a negative person, and I was mad. I was angry and negative and fearful. It was pretty bad. And anyway, on with the story is I go into the grocery store and I was trying to get something off the shelf. Well, within 2 minutes, there was somebody with a cart behind me, somebody with a cart in front of me. Then somebody turned the corner, and then I was just blocked in on all 3 sides. And I'm standing there looking at the scene like I do. You know, it's like, what is this? What's happening here? And I said, that was odd. Wonder if it'll happen again. So then I rolled my cart. I got out of it. I had to ask somebody to scoot over so I could get out of it. And I get out of it. I go around the corner and went down another aisle. So, okay, I'll stop right here. And then I just waited. Then here they come. Well, another person rolls up behind me. Another person comes in front of me. Then this little boy comes over and stands right next to me and put his little hand around my knee and just stood there. And I thought, So that was twice that it happened. And that was my evidence, my proof that when you raise your resonance and you are no longer negative, that people can feel it and they need it so badly. It doesn't matter. They don't know why they're standing there. They have no idea. They don't know who you are. All they know is that it feels good. So I'm going to stand right here. And, you know,
And when you're really coming from that state of being with that love, you don't get drained, you know, because some people would go, well, that's energy vampires, right? But you have, it's endless. It's like magnetism. It's self-generating. It's endless.
It's endless. Nobody can, when you're in that higher resonance and you're in a love resonance, that and you can feel it. It's a high, I see fear and negativity as a very low, but love vibration, it just reminds me of hummingbirds. It's a very high pitch. you can just feel it. It's sparkly and it feels really, really good. And it's wherever you go, it's resonating out from you and it's affecting everybody around you. And you can see it in them. And, it's like you said, they're not, when they walk up and stand next to you, it's not that you have a finite amount of it and they're going to suck it all away and then you're not going to have any for yourself. It's nothing like that. It's they come up and basically I see, oh, they're just basking in the love. And I think to myself now, oh, y'all, look, let's all bask in it. Doesn't this feel good?
Bask
But
in love and wallow in gratitude, right?
yes, and I learned from a master here. I saw Tom do it, and everybody, I mean, they just encircle him, and you can see them. They're just basking in the love, not really knowing what's happening here. All they know is, oh, I love Tom. It's like, well, Tom's loving you back, in his magnetic resonance of love, and it's everywhere he goes. And I think as we progress in our journey and we start getting back to the love and away from the fear, you can see it within yourself. It's the
And
same
Jason's
thing.
like that too, really. You can see the
Yes.
people that are around Jason, like Matt, look how much Matt is glowing from the first time he was with Jason. He's totally transformed because he's picked up so much of Jason's light. And of course, he's probably living pretty fearless too because he's taken Jason's advice.
Yes. Yes. He was ready. It's that when the student is ready, the teacher shows himself. And oh, if he's there with Jason, I mean, it's almost, I would say, a very high probability that he worked with Jason in his last life. Because I've seen that tends to be what happens is the people that we worked with in our previous lives, the ones that we learned the most from, we'll plan to come back and meet up with them again. See, and then we meet up with them again and we just kind of pick up where we left off. And that's kind of how it feels when you meet, older souls and people you've worked with. It's like there is no, unfamiliar meeting of, oh, who's this? It's just like you picked up where you left off. You already know each other and you're just having a conversation like you used to. So I'm pretty sure that Matt is, and when Jason is doing his show, you can feel the high resonance of love and how he tells, people in the chat, oh, I love you, man. And he's just channeling it into that chat room to feed that light to these people that are just coming to these concepts that you're doing it. Because, when you start working on yourself, you've got to go through an ego death. It's one of the most painful things that we go through here. From my personal experience, and I've seen other people that are going through it, and oh, it's just so painful. You just want to lay on the ground and curl up in a ball because that ego, it just hangs on for dear life. And it just, because you've created that ego in your mind, and it's ego in the service of fear. So that ego, it wants to, because it thinks it's protecting you. It is you. It's a part of you. You created it. And there it is. It just shows up anytime, you're in a new situation. Here's the ego. Oh, be careful. Fear, 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 fear. So when you're trying to, knock that fear back, well, it fights back. It doesn't want to sit down and take a seat and just be integrated into the whole of you. It doesn't want to be transformed. It wants to stay in control of you because I think that's how fear keeps us entrenched in it, is because if you have not done the ego work, that ego keeps jumping in there and, affecting your choices and causing you to, accidentally hurt others around you because you're doing things out of fear. And when you start feeling that, it puts in you just this horrible sensation of, it's hard to describe. It feels so bad. And I think that's one of the reasons Tom is super serious on his shows. He knows that people that are involved in his work are going through ego death, and it's just brutal. And he doesn't want to be cutting up on there and laughing. The only place that he cuts up and laughs so far that I've seen is when we did our interview, because it was for the right brains, right? The right brains would kind of understand. Yeah, we go through ego death and that hurts. but we can move past it. And joy and laughter is good here. We need to laugh and we need joy, because that's kind of what offsets these painful experiences that we have to go through to grow. The struggle is real and it's painful.
And it's
And
so
one,
interesting. And I've heard Tom bring this up too, how as when you cry and when you laugh, your body kind of has the same vibration and you make the same noises. So it's really
it
interesting that those two vibrations are so similar.
is. It really is. You know, and I think that we have to have those systems within our avatar, because if things did, because that's how we feel, is through our avatar. That's where our feelings, you know, if we didn't have those, well, how would you know where you're going? You wouldn't know. Oh, that didn't turn out so good, you know, or, oh, wow, that's doing great. Oh, this feels good. You know, it's kind of like a compass. I see emotions as a compass also. And, you know, I think that's one of the things that Jason is really good at, is working with people who are going through ego death, that are just so in pain that, you know, it's almost like that thing. Have you ever cried where you weren't really crying, where you were just felt so bad, your eyes just started watering? Make your eyes,
I've cried all my tears away before. I've cried so much that I didn't have tears anymore.
there wasn't any more left. Oh, me too. And Jason is just so good at going, hey guys, look, I came from the dungeon. and Jason had to go through, you know, some ego work there too. But see, he'd already done a lot of ego work before in his last life. So he was not new to it. So he just dealt with it, and is, you know, got it out of the way quickly while he was, you know, when he was in his purgatory. That's what I call his jail. When he was in jail, he was in his purgatory, getting it together so he could get out and come help everybody. But he's so good at working with people who are going through ego death. And I've seen them on his channel, you know, they're just, I'm suffering here, and they are. And he gently tries to remind them. He's like, well, these are the reasons why you're suffering. And I just find his vibration very helpful for the people that are working through that. And I think they're both just, you know, exceptional teachers here. That's probably why I'm drawn to them, because I'm an upcoming teacher. I'm not nowhere near where they are, but I am learning, you know. And
Well, I'd say you're pretty close, and you and Jason and Tom, and then I'm starting an intentional community here in Portugal, and Eugene, who's here, and this other friend of mine, Marcus, who's in Portugal too. Y'all are all people that as soon as I heard your voice, you know, I just had this resonance with you. And, you know, the more I look into you, whatever, everything, just have this resonance like you were talking about earlier. You just have that familiar thing the first time you're around them, you're just comfortable. It's all like you just picked up where you left off, basically. So yeah, it's just really cool, and it really supports that we are in the end times, because all this stuff is amping up. We have these magic devices. I'm on my phone now. You know, this thing can just do so much stuff. It's amazing. You know, I was born in 1961, so you know, I really appreciate technology and the benevolence of it. You know, so many people are always dissing technology, saying, "Oh, you know, it's evil and evil." But man, it's good. Look at how many like-minded, like-hearted people are able to connect, and since we can connect virtually, well, there is no distance in the ether, but we can connect physically here in this dense realm too. You know, we can meet up before 2040 when we lose our infrastructure and get in our communities. But yeah,
yeah,
you just find those people, and you know, your tribe
it's
comes
like a
to you.
homecoming. It's
Yeah,
like,
they say when
yay,
you go
there
through
you
the work,
are.
right, and you do that work, you go through that solitude, that introspection time, that hard time when nobody's going to get you, when you're working all this out, sorting it out, and you know, you have a lot of isolation. But then all of a sudden, man, your tribe just starts showing up. And you know, and this community was really an unintentional intentional community in some ways, you know, but it's just how things work out, and it's just amazing. And this is our time to find our tribes. And I think to not only, of course, lose fear, that's the number one thing you have to do, but decide if you want to stay in the matrix or not, you know. And it's okay if you do, you can do fine there. I mean, Tom Campbell's a great example of that, and Jason. But You
And
know, if you want to
Jason.
get out, if you want to get out and get back more to nature or whatever, this is the time to start, you know, getting in those communities. And so many people are doing it now. It's funny how when ideas like that get out in the ether, everybody picks up on it and it just starts a whole trend. And I think we're about to start a new breakaway civilization. And Sonia's always talking about how we've already had a timeline split back in 2017, and you can see it more and more as you know people you don't resonate with. You just you know there's this rift forming between you more and more. You know, in all kinds of
Yes.
ways. And some people are going one way, and some are going the other. Just like you know when this simulation reboots, some are going to whatever happens, and others are going to go on. So,
Uh-huh.
and that's already happened in this realm a bit too.
Yes, yes. And I always thought, here recently, it's like, wow, this is kind of like that Stephen King book, where you had to pick a side. You got to pick a side. Are you going to go into the depths of negativity? Or are you going to work your way out? You can come on. What are you going to do? It's like a choice that you have now. And that choice is just getting bigger and bigger because the negative resonance is getting more and more intense, right? So it's becoming more and more uncomfortable. Now, if you think about it, this is a consciousness soul, learning tool. We're here to learn and grow as consciousness and evolve. Well, what would it do? Well, it would crank up the negative to help. It's going to move more people out of there because it's so uncomfortable. They will start seeking to try. Not all of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them are going to start
The
looking around.
pandemic was a great example of that. The pandemic was a great example of that. Look how many people woke up because of that.
Yes, yes. And that's why, people are saying, oh, all these things that are going on in the world. And I this may sound bad, but I just kind of giggle a little bit because like, yeah, I do see what's going on. And wow, are a lot of people going to grow up because of that? Isn't that wonderful? See, I know it sounds terrible, but this is a virtual reality. This isn't real. I mean, so to me and from my perspective, consciousness is
Well,
what.
and that's the big secret. That's a big secret. They know none of it's real. So, you know, and there
Well, yeah,
really is no torture. There's no torture. We all die, but we don't really die anyway. And because, you
right.
know, if you're really being tortured, you're not there anymore. It's just your avatar with, I don't know what's in there, but it's not you.
No, it's not you, and your consciousness is pulled out because it doesn't want to damage consciousness here. Look at all the megabytes it spends on helping consciousness evolve. Well, it doesn't want a consciousness that's been evolving to get into a situation to where it's going to go backwards, 10,000 lives. That would not be efficient. And this system is efficient in everything it does because it only has so many gigabytes or whatever. So it's very efficient. And I truly believe, because I had an experience myself to where it was very awful and scary, but I wasn't there. I can't remember none of it. I know it happened, but I was not there. My consciousness was pulled. I was taken somewhere else and it was talking to me and everything was fine. And so I
And that's
already
always
had
the report. That's always the report, just like with Jason's motorcycle wreck, right?
yes,
He
exactly.
didn't feel any pain. People never feel pain during these traumatic
No,
things. You know?
they don't feel it unless they
And
expect
we
to.
often forget any psychological trauma that we've gone through. You know, we don't even
Yeah.
remember it.
No.
And it's not who we are. And we can heal from anything. We can heal from anything, no matter how horrific. Kathy O'Brien, with her PTSD, A Time to Heal book, is perfect example. You know, anybody can heal from anything. And like you said,
Mhm.
it's really not real anyway.
Right. And we need some of those horrific situations to kind of snap you out of it and go, wait a minute, I need to be doing something here with myself, and it's those, because when you have experiences like that, it increases the fear, you become more uncomfortable. And the only way to feel better is to, go back into that trauma and deal with it and heal it. And a lot of people don't know that you can heal it, but we have the ability as consciousness to transmute that negativity into positivity by, number one, being grateful for the experience, because without that experience, I would not be, a more decent person than I am today. And now I have the ability to go help others find their way once I do my healing work. And that healing work is also tied into your growth. And without it, you can't grow. We're not at a place where we don't need pain to grow. You know, a lot of us still need pain to get our attention, you know, and it definitely, that negativity and pain will get your attention. It'll keep you focused on it until you figure out how to get out of it. But it's just about transmuting, you know, that negativity and, oh, this person did this to me. But when you
And
change your
switching
perspective,
focus too. You have to exactly switching your focus, changing your perspective.
changing your
You
perspective.
can always find the good in everything. And you got, like you said, you have to start with gratitude. You have to,
Yes.
that's what, you know, I went through years of depression and self-abuse, and I look back on it, and my biggest issue was lack of gratitude. You know, and of course I had a lot of judgments that I had to go and clear up in my subconscious and unconscious. And that's why a lot of people don't manifest with their conscious mind intends, because their subconscious is telling them they're not worthy, they're not good enough, they, you know, they never have enough. And
Right.
if you don't somehow do that, and that's what I really like about this modality that I talk about a lot on my channel, Language Lessons of the Heart. It's just a really simple thing. You go in there, you find the judgments, you release them, and then you replace that judgment with 6 things positive about yourself. And for whatever
Oh,
reason, it's real simple. It's a simple little ritual, but rituals put up templates in the ether
yes.
that allow for things to happen. They're very effective. And that's what, you know, anything is. And this works to clear out your subconscious. And then you start manifesting amazing life. You're just in awe every day of all the miracles that happen. You know, and
Yes.
people are so many people are so resistant to doing something like that. It's free. You just do it. It's still, people don't want to do it. It just amazes me. And it's just because their resonance, I guess, isn't at that point. And I guess some
Right.
people are just NPCs too. And that's a whole nother issue. Is that a resonance thing? Can NPCs graduate and, you know, end up like us and get real souls? But we will probably have to save some of this for another time, because I need to take my dogs for a walk, and I have another Zoom at 5, and it's 4:20 here almost.
All right.
But man,
Oh, we need to
we
do this
covered a lot
again.
of ground. Yeah, it's so cool to talk to you. And I'm sure we know each other from past life. And if you find out who I was, then just let me know.
Well,
But
I'll look around. Do you ever think about
I'm I'm thinking
California?
I'm thinking I'm pretty I'm more right brain than or left brain than I thought, because yeah, I am real logical, and I do have a hard time with meditation and stuff. So I'm encouraged now to
Ah,
get to this part. But what were you saying, California?
yeah. Do you have any resonances there? Do you, you know, have you ever had thoughts about California?
Um, I don't know. I've been there a couple of times. I liked it. You know, the landscape of it. Of course, it's a beautiful place. But yeah, other than that, nothing.
Yeah, you could.
Where are you at from Texas? I mean, where from Texas are you?
I'm in Denton.
Okay, yeah. So I lived in Plano for a while.
I used to live in Plano too. Yeah, we've been crossing paths for a while.
What year did you live in Plano?
Um, Probably 1993, 4, 5, somewhere in there.
Oh, I lived there from 96 to 2002. So we probably just missed each other.
Yep, yep. I was there with my residence. I left and you showed up.
Right. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you could have came through.
My resonance was not a good resonance then at all. But like you said,
Mine
all
wouldn't
these
either.
experiences make you who you are, and you just have to have gratitude for everything and grow from it.
Yes. Oh, you know, I tell people, I mean, I was one of the most negative people that I'd ever met. And, you know, they meet me now and they're like, oh, there's no way. I said, oh, yes, way. Oh,
And
yes.
the same thing
I
with
was
me. When I
negative.
tell people the way I used to be, they're like, "What, you?" Yeah, me.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Because
but
once you
I feel
grow,
like I've had 1,000 lifetimes this lifetime in so many ways. You know, just been so many different people just in this, you know, linear time span.
yes. But we're well on our way. We are learning it and we're doing well and we're learning. I call it the teacher module. That's what I'm
And
in. I'm in the teacher, the
there's no
teaching
stopping
module.
now. We have our momentum. We're going. we figured it out. I mean, I can't get on the astral and stuff like you yet, but I sure can manifest. And
Yeah, yeah, you've learned how to do it.
it's right, and it's like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it.
The
I
better
never
you
thought
get
of
at it.
manifesting like that, but it really is, and it just comes quicker and easier, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't expect that quicker." Things just manifest that you didn't even think of yet, that you were like, "Oh, yeah, I would have manifested that if I would have thought about it."
It is crazy how fast things switch when you just change what you're thinking. And this one thing changed my whole world. I have everything I need. That one statement, oh my God, it changed everything, how I saw about the whole abundance thing. And as soon as I started believing that I have everything I need, it was just like magic. All of a sudden, I had everything I needed because I no longer was in that mode. I don't have enough. And when you think you don't have enough, well, guess what? That's what you're going to manifest is not enough.
Right? So you set up that lack feedback loop.
The lack feedback loop. And when you're saying things like that, you're adding that into your informed field. I have everything I need. And so
Everything
in
I
that,
need, and then it's just
and
amazing how
even
that
then
works.
some. Well, let's
Well,
set up some more and I'll send you some emails. And there's a couple of other topics I think that we could go into. I think one really good topic that we could go explore deeper is how to help people recognize how to use I call it situational self-therapy, right? Where you use the situations you find yourself in to teach yourself and how to use your feedback loop as your guide. I think that that would be a really good topic. And also too, because people are wondering, well, exactly how do you work on your fear? And then talk about some of that because
exactly.
I was deep in the fear
Exactly.
mode and I had to climb my way out of that thing and it's not easy. But
Right.
I could take my examples and how I worked on it and and it's separate from Tom because Tom is not my experience. He's just in my experience. But
Well, and Tom
I only
doesn't have
go,
a lot of time to really give people a lot of details on how to get rid of fear. He's too busy fielding all these other questions from, every angle. So yeah,
yes,
to get more into detail about how exactly, because he's like, well, you gotta lose the fear, you gotta lose the fear, you gotta lose the fear. I mean, like,
right.
how do I lose the fear? So yeah,
Oh,
that's so important. And
and
that's
here's a
the
big,
key. As soon as you lose the fear, everything else falls into place.
yes. And see, he doesn't go into, because some people have had so much fear and they've been in it deep for so long that they have a little bit of PTSD to go with it. So that their triggery system is very triggery, right? They get triggered really easy everywhere they go. And I invented like a bracelet that you put on that when you go into fear, that it has 4 different colored beads on it. And the red bead is for stop, 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 stop. And then the next bead is, take 3 deep breaths to help pull you out of, PTSD for a minute so you can think while you're in a fearful situation. And that's how I did it. Was I invented this bracelet, then I used the bracelet, and then it got me out of it because every time I would feel the panic arise, the panic button would get hit, I would go to my bracelet and work my way out that way. And some people need a very visual, tangible, physical thing like that, a tool to help them. So that's one of the things we can talk about. I'll send you, an email. I'm not trying to sell nothing. I don't sell them or anything. I just made it for me. And, that's
Right,
how
and
I
people
got,
can always make their own, right? You get a bracelet,
yeah,
you put 4 beads on it, and you wear it, and you assign each, because like Tom says, you can create your own ritual. You can do something beside the bracelet, but that's a great template
right.
for people to follow. Just some little thing to trigger you the other way instead of just reacting like you
Well, what
usually
I
do.
do,
And having
right,
that
you're right.
that observation of above, not just in the process.
Yes, and Tom doesn't go into these specifics of exactly how do you do this. And I do make the bracelets. I have a whole bunch of them, but I give them away. I don't, they're not for, I'm not selling anything. So when we do one on exactly how to get out of fear, then we can put a link up and then I will send out these free bracelets for people who are working on getting a hold of this fear thing in their life. And that would be really cool.
Well, here you go. Here you go, everyone. So we will go ahead and end it here. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I'm glad we finally connected in this reality stream and this data stream. And looking forward to all kinds of fun stuff with you. It's just so cool. And thanks everybody out there for listening. And remember to stay focused on what you want and help others if you can. All right, Cheryl, we'll be in touch via email, and I'll send you the copy of this.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for joining and going into talks with us. And I am really looking forward to our work together.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. So we'll be in touch. Ciao, ciao.